So we're live. Good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock in Melbourne and 1 p.m. in Tokyo. Today, we have a very, very special guest. I know I say that all the time, but I wouldn't invite them into the session if they're not special. And Ian is extra special because he is the only vendor that we have from overseas. He's streaming in from Tokyo. So hi Ian, how are you today?
Yes, good, very good.
That's good.
It was a nice day.
Yeah, how's the weather like in Tokyo?
We had a typhoon that came through yesterday, so
Wow, so exciting.
but today it's good.
Yeah.
Just the day after the typhoon is always very nice.
Right. Do you have typhoon often in Tokyo?
Yeah. Oh, no, actually, not in Tokyo. We very rarely have typhoons in Tokyo.
Wow, sounds like there are a lot of strange weathers going on because in Melbourne we had the earthquake. I don't know if you heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And then so everyone's okay in Tokyo with the typhoon?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a direct hit, so it's okay.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. So today we'll be brewing 3 rare Japanese tea. When I approached Ian, he did ask me that, what sort of tea does people want to drink, in Australia? But I feel like that, we actually would like to know, what Ian would like to drink. Because to be honest, I feel like that the tea market here, like they don't have enough understanding to really pick, a tea from your range. Another thing I would say, let me give you an introduction of how I get to know Ian. So without me knowing, I've been drinking Ian's tea for a long time, like probably 2 years before I know that it's from Yunomi. It is because I have a really, really good Japanese tea friend, and she is a qualified Japanese tea instructor. I'm specializing in Chinese tea. So all the tea she brew for me, like all the Japanese tea that I drink is from her. And she would constantly giving me sample to brew at home. And I just thought that, Japanese tea is actually can be really good. It was beyond my imagination because I just thought always Japanese tea equals green tea. And my passion is with oolong. But then when I actually went to Japan myself, I tried to go out and find tea, and none of this tea of the same quality is, within my reach, even though I was in Japan. So similar to the Chinese tea market, you really need to know the right, place and the right people to get your hand onto the really good quality stuff. So subsequently, now this year, we are trying to organize another tea project in Melbourne, and I do need to source Japanese tea myself rather than personal consumption. So I finally get in touch with Ian, which he had helped us a great deal in selecting really good Japanese tea. But not just Japanese tea, he's also so resourceful that we needed some cast iron kettle, and he actually also contact the manufacturer and then work out like the best way to mail it to us. So I would say that Ian is not just a tea merchant. He is like a great portal. Like knowing him, then you pretty much can get in touch with, all the things that you probably can potentially imagine getting tea-wise. So welcome, Ian. Thank you so much to giving an hour of your day to coming to talk to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So do you want to let us know a little bit about what we are drinking today?
Okay. Should I give an introduction about Yunomi?
Yeah, yes, please.
So Yunomi is, it has gone. I guess you could start from the very beginning. Was that I was doing marketing at an IT company here in Japan, like a big company. And then my wife wanted to do an MBA in the US, so I quit my job to follow her, and so I wasn't doing anything. A friend of mine introduced me to Matsumoto-san from Obubu Tea Farms. And he wanted, he asked me to help him out with building their international business. So that was 2009, 2010. And that was before all of these systems came up to make e-commerce very easy. But I had been doing e-commerce at the big company, so I knew how to get a low-cost website up and running. So we started his international business for Obubu in 2010, and Matsumoto-san and I we worked together at building what was that at that time called the International Tea Farms Alliance, and we were trying to really figure out how to help tea farmers, specifically, not simply just get tea out into the world, but how to help tea farmers specifically. And we ended up creating this organization, and we had some government funding, so we did a bunch of things. But then the government funding ran out, and so the organization by itself wasn't something that was going to continue without that government funding. But I had met other tea farmers who were also interested in their international business, but didn't know how to run it. So I started helping them build international export-based businesses, and decided that it'd be easier to just put it all together into one umbrella brand. And so that became Yunomi. And I had tried to make Yunomi into a platform like Amazon Marketplace, but my computer skills are not that great. And then what I really found out was that producers,
I would say it's better than mine.
maybe, but like you have to, in order to really build something different and new, you have to be like not just use existing technology, but
yes.
But actually, the technology was not really the problem. The problem was that producers, not just tea farmers, but tea factories, producers, while like the increased like profit rate from selling retail is nice, it's not really it's not the business that they're in. The business that they're doing is producing tea, and so the time that they're spending is mainly producing tea or cultivating tea if they're a farmer. And so like the business of retail is an entire activity in and of itself, and most of these producers don't have the time to do it. And so in order for them to manage their products online, and to do it in another language that they don't speak is very difficult. So like a platform kind of like collapsed on itself for that reasons. And so I just took the platform and just turned it into more ordinary tea business, but one that still focuses on trying to help the producers, farms and factories. And so that's the reason. That's how I got into the business, not specifically because I really, really like tea or anything. And that's also the reason why we don't have just like a really core set of teas, but we have like 1,000 teas, because I'm kind of interested in getting access for you guys, for tea enthusiasts around the world, getting access to like the entire industry, and that would be interesting. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, well, I feel like I have a personal experience of that. Like, my first time going onto your website, I was really overwhelmed, because if you search for example, I was looking for Xincha, and then like 30 different Xincha, and I was like, without knowing the background, it is really hard to pick which one. And then you realize that it's from all different regions. Even in the same region, there will be different producers. So you have to know your tea to be able to buy. And that's why I think that talking to you today will really help us to navigate your site. And I also want to mention that, Yunomi site is not just for tea selling. There is a blog, give you a lot of good information, especially introduction to Japanese tea, in vocabulary even. So yeah, Ian, you might want to add to that.
So there's like the main point of the website is to create a very large scale access, and because it's access oriented, there's not a lot of there isn't as much curation as a normal tea business would have. And so I do a little bit of curation myself, but for the main part, I'm looking at curating producers, and if they are good producers, then most of the teas will be good, as long as they give the right pricing. You could say that there's no such thing as bad tea. It's just it's just maybe overpriced, right?
I think I will disagree. That is as
So
we were doing
if the tea is if what you consider as a bad tea is actually priced at a very, very low price, then it's not
no,
a bad tea.
no. Hear me
It
out.
has to be relative.
Yesterday, I tried a tea in Vietnam, and I kid you not, I can taste Sichuan pepper and beef in a green tea. That's not supposed to be like that. Anyway.
Wow. So so that what we want to do is, obviously for individuals, you should, cultivate your knowledge about tea, and because in order to be able to know what to try and what to purchase, we put a lot of information about the tea online. So if you don't understand that information, then it's kind of pointless to come to us. It also makes it, it gives a purpose to tea sellers who are not us, right? If you're a tea seller in Melbourne and you are the one who you're basically the one who's curating the teas, not us, right? So we have we give you access to the entire industry in Japan, but we're not curating it for people who are not learning an extreme, not taking their hobby or enthusiasm for tea to an extreme level. So for that reason, there's, you could say that means that there's a lot of work that we need to do in trying to figure out how to make tea more accessible to people who are not going to, spend hours of time, studying about tea. But at the same time, we are, focused more on, there's still a lot of teas in Japan that are very interesting that we don't have online yet. So, and the other thing is I also starting to work now with producers and helping them to develop teas that are new to the industry. So I'm thinking about doing that as well.
Yeah. So, Kirsten said that the Yunomi tasting packs are great if you're overwhelmed by all the options, educational in comparing to different types and different grapes. So yeah, I find that really helpful as well because you offer very small packs, small tasting sample, and you can buy that individually and find out what you want before you put in a big order. So thank you for offering that on your website, Ian.
There is also a section on the website called the Dojo. And the dojo is meant to have a lot of different sampler packs, and some of them we need to recreate again. But there are a lot of the packs, the sets that are actually sold out right now. We need to rebuild them, but a lot of them are meant to help you learn about things. So, for example, there's one sampler pack that has 9 grades of green tea. From the top level gyokuro to the bottom level bancha, that allows you to taste the different grades, from cheap to expensive. There's also, for example, there are sets, and these are sold out right now because we haven't had the time to put it together. But we're going to do that this month for the Christmas season. There's sets, for example, where you can taste the different levels of shading, like gyokuro, kabusecha, sencha, or there's a set that allows you to taste the difference between 2020 sencha versus 2021. I think that might be 2020 versus 2021, and the idea is that we're trying to see what happens when the tea gets old or is aged.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways to, and I think that my philosophy is that the best way to learn about tea is to know what you're drinking and just to drink a lot.
I agree.
Right. So I have that type of philosophy in terms of like helping people learn about Japanese tea. But for those who just want something good, I still struggle with trying to help people like find what suggest something that is just good, because everything is kind of good in its own way.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of work to do still.
Yeah, I agree. So Heath say that, any suggestion for someone who likes green tea on the more astringent and sweet side? I personally find that is very hard to, give suggestion, even though astringent and sweet, because they can all be a little bit astringent on the sweet side. Yeah, but I don't know, sorry. He or she, I had no idea. Excuse me, not not my first language. So Heath is buying the dojo selection right now. Thank you for supporting me.
When people ask for very specific suggestions, I have trouble with that, because they're actually the whole point of Yunomi is that there should be, if there's only one option for any one specific recommendation, then we have work to do, and that's my philosophy. Like, we want to present. There are cases where there's only one producer in the entirety of Japan that is producing that specific tea. But for the most part, that's not the case. And to say that there should be multiple producers producing any one type of tea for most of the teas that are out there. And I actually have an example of a tea right here that only this producer produces. But so when people ask me, do you have a tea, and it is kind of hard to suggest.
I think.
So, but that being said, the next big project would be to tag all of the products and provide all of this metadata. Tag all of the products with like levels of astringency, levels of bitterness. But then you have to question, like, how are you brewing it too? If you're brewing it in different ways, you can get like a lot of astringency out of a lot of different teas, right?
Speaking of brewing, I think we should start brewing. We are 18 minutes in. So let's start brewing our first tea. So our first tea here is, let me show you what it is. So this is the packet.
Okay, the Shodai blend from Bizenyang.
Yes. So I know Japanese is called Hachiyu Hachiya, but because for me, I'm reading the kanji. It's 88th night.
Right.
Why is it called 18th night, but not 88 days?
So there's a tradition in Japan called the Hachiju Hachiya, the eighth night, and this is the 88th night or the 88th day from the start of spring in the lunar calendar. So the start of spring in the lunar calendar in Japan is called Rishun, and you count 88 days from there, 8 being like a lucky number in Asian cultures. So you count 88 days from there, and generally the tea that is harvested on the 88th day is, it is early for, and this tradition arose from the Kyoto region. So it's early for the Kyoto region. So the earlier that you harvest the tea means the tea leaf is small still, and it gets bigger as it grows. But when it's small, that's when it is considered high quality. And if you think about a leaf that is small, a leaf that is small versus a leaf that is twice as long, the amount of area of that leaf is actually, not, it may be twice as long, but the amount of area of the leaf would be like 4 times, for example. So you get much more volume. You get much more volume with a larger leaf.
Okay.
And that's why smaller leaves. And it's also higher in grade because the leaf is still very tender when it's small. So when you have a larger or smaller leaf, the crop yield is much lower, so it becomes a much higher grade. I'm going to steep this with 5 grams also here.
Sure. Nelson said that, that's his philosophy with beer. Drink lots of it. I find that pretty funny, so I just want to read that.
So let's see. I need a cooler. Where is my?
Well, what's the temperature you recommend for tea?
For the green teas, I generally recommend around 70 to 75 degrees. So this was steep. This was boiled a little while ago, so it's probably around 80 degrees. So I'm pouring it into.
Yeah, I was talking to George from Obubu yesterday, and he said that if you hold the water and it's not too hot to hold, it means it's ready to go in. And I'm like, wow, that's a really good tip. Yeah.
But that's also subjective, right? Like how hot are you able to hold it is subjective.
That's true.
So I'm pouring it in here. So this is going to be about 70 degrees right now. And people try to get it really exact. I don't really think it's too important to be really exact because the water's temperature is going to change as it steeps anyway, right?
Yes.
Do you have a timer?
No, but I can look at the clock here on the live.
Yeah. So I actually don't time it when I steep it myself either.
Me either. I like to look at how much the leaves have unfold.
Yeah.
And it sort of gives you an idea.
I'm putting it in. So let me tell you a little bit more about this tea. And the reason why Yunomi is called Yunomi is the cup that is used during the winter times to drink tea in Japan. Yunomi is also like the activity of drinking tea. And when I came up with the name as I was walking home from I think drinking out with friends, but so I was a little bit tipsy at the time, and you know me, it's also in English, you know me. And basically, you know me. And basically, I really want people to learn about the people who are behind the teas. The whole reason I got into the industry was because of the people, not because of the tea itself.
Yes.
Because Matsumoto-san was a really great guy, because the people he introduced me to were really wonderful people. And then they told me about the status of the tea industry in Japan. I was like, this really sucks that people are leaving the tea industry. They're not coming back into the tea industry. And so because of that, I really want people to learn about the teas, but also about the people who are behind the teas. So Bizenya is a tea company in Saitama. They're primarily a merchant. But it's just interesting about the tea industry in Japan is that different companies often have different roles or do different things. And Shimizu-san, the president of Bizenya, is a merchant primarily, but he also owns his own tea fields. And with his own tea fields, he produces. He does a lot of experimentation. He does this with his own tea fields, and he does it with tea farmers that he contracts out to. And so one of the things that he does is that he leaves the cultivation to the farmer, and then he and his employees will go and handpick teas from the field for different products. And for this product specifically, the Shodai blend, they
Mhm.
went out themselves and handpicked the teas from 3 different fields, I believe, 3 different cultivars. And
Wow.
then what they're doing is they are withering the tea leaf. You're not supposed to do this with sencha.
Oh, that's very interesting.
You're not supposed to do this with sencha.
Yeah.
Although it's becoming more and more accepted now. But if you
What did you
notice,
reckon it does with the withering?
well, it's basically what you're doing with oolong tea, right?
Yeah.
So the withering adds a little bit of complexity to the leaf. There's a little bit of floralness. But it's not meant to be oolong tea. It's meant to be sencha, and so it's a sencha with notes of oolong, like the floral complexity of oolong, and so.
Wow. I just taste it. I can taste it. It does taste a little like oolong tea.
Mhm.
Wow.
Very light oolong tea, like a super green oolong tea, or
My
a slightly oolong green tea.
mm.
And so this is what they're doing. A lot of different farms are doing this recently.
Mm.
In actuality, like you cannot, like sencha is literally leaf that has been steamed immediately after harvesting.
Mm.
But actually, you really can't get it immediate. Like immediate is, if you're harvesting at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning,
Mm.
you can if you're doing a small batch, you can take it immediately to the factory, and you can steam it and start processing
Mm.
within an hour. But if you're doing like much larger batches, the leaf will come to the factory. If you're doing like 600 kilograms of tea leaf, it'll come to the factory and it goes through the machines little by little, right? So 600 kilograms might take anywhere between like 6 to 8 hours to process through,
Mm.
depending on the scale of your factory. So it's actually the leaf is there and it's already been picked, and if you got 600 kilograms of leaf, it's 600 kilograms of weight. So the leaf at the bottom actually gets hot as a result of the weight
Yes.
and the oxidization that the leaf is going through.
Yes.
So in the machinery in the factories, you've got they're in these containers, and you've got these fans. If the factory is big enough, obviously, but you've got these fans that are blowing cool air from the bottom to keep the leaf cool, to prevent it from oxidizing as much.
Yes.
But so you take that process and you kind of flip it on the head. So let's wither it a little. Let's allow it to oxidize a little bit
Yes.
before it's being processed into sencha. So he's been doing this, and a lot of other companies have been doing this as well. So
Yes.
the term in Japanese is called icho cha. Icho meaning withering.
Ah.
Yeah,
It,
icho cha. So I call it just green withered tea on the
you know,
website. But
you know what it tastes like to me? It tastes like you mix sencha with tieguanyin. Tieguanyin is a very green Chinese oolong, very, very well known.
right. I can see
Mm.
that. Yeah. So you're supposed to get the both the sencha flavors as well as the
Yes, it
oolong
does.
flavor. At the
It
same time.
has the meatiness from the umami, but then you can also have like sort of like an orchid sort of floralness. So in short, I think that thank you for picking this one. This had changed, like again, made me taste a Japanese tea that I didn't know even exist. Like this taste profile is not something that I had before. So I recommend everyone, search this on Ian's website. I will show the website again at the end of this session.
So that's this one right here.
Yeah.
So you can see, like, if you compare these two, like the color is different, right?
Yes.
And I think the color difference is partly a result of
The withering.
the withering. Although
Yes.
it's also partly a result that this is a shaded tea, so it's going to be green, more green anyway.
Yes.
But yeah.
Beautiful.
So
How many infusion you recommend for this one?
how many infusions?
Mm.
How many infusions can you get out of it?
Yeah.
You know, I when I drink tea at work like all the time, right? So
Yeah.
I'm drinking tea for work a lot, and
Yeah.
so I actually I don't know how much you can get out of it because I don't drink it all that much. Um, I'm always moving to the next one.
True. True that. We do that
We
at work.
taste it, and then yeah, I'm tasting like multiple teas a day, like every day, and
Yeah.
so I know that you can get at least three. So I always say that you can get three steeps out of any one tea. Actually, in Japan they don't say that. They always usually say you can get one or two steeps, um, and after that it loses the intended flavor that the producers think is good. Um, so it's very interesting in that they don't recommend you steeping more than that, but you can. And I know like customers who say that they steep like 5 or 6 times until it
Yeah.
runs out of flavor, which is I think great because you utilize the tea leaf as much as possible.
I think that George also said that yesterday. Like, if you steep it and you don't think there's anything coming out anymore, you can actually brew with boiling water for 5 minutes. Then it start to break down the carbon dioxide.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it will become really sweet. Which it is the same principle where you're brewing like a white tea or a pu'er tea. At the end, you can actually cook it on the stove and it will give out a little bit more substance and it is a lot sweeter. Yeah.
So one thing is that this is going to be a light steamed tea. So you can
Yes.
see that the leaf is very intact here, right?
Yes.
Now, if we go to the gyokuro is not specifically like deep steamed, but it's very young leaf and it's steamed regularly, so it's a little bit more broken up. This is actually kind of a good segue into this leaf as well. And this is kind of fun, so I'd love to show this to you. So I'm gonna start steeping the gyokuro.
Okay, sure. I'll move with you. Actually, I wrote down some questions before, when I was preparing for the live. So it mentioned that it is hand fire using a rod. Even though I don't know what it is, I think it's a really big table with two people on it rolling it around. I saw footage of it. Yeah. And the table is 80 degree, I think. And it's, they heat up the table at 80 degree. And then they basically rolling it and at the same time shaping it into this long needle shape. It's very interesting to watch. And the whole process takes 6 hours. So I did study that.
Okay. This is not hand rolled. This tea is not hand rolled. The table itself can also be used as in the refinement techniques. So Bizenya is not a producer themselves in terms of the initial processing. So they have somebody else process it into dry leaf. The unrefined dry leaf is called aracha. And then you take the aracha and the aracha is produced so that it's not like 100% complete yet. It still needs to be refined in terms of the stems and filtered out. The stems and the small broken leaves needs to be filtered out, but it also needs to be heated a little bit more so that you reduce the moisture level from like 5% to like 2% or 1%. And that is something that is done by the wholesaler or the retailer. that and that changes depending on how the retailer wants the final product to be.
Wow, that's very different to the Chinese tea market.
Yeah, it's not complete when you get it from the initial processor. And actually, if you get tea that is like true aracha, not aracha that has been processed for commercial production, but commercial sale, but real aracha that the wholesalers are buying, it actually doesn't last very long on store shelves. You need to keep it in. You need to keep it in deep freeze or at least refrigeration so that it retains its quality over time. And if you don't do it, then it fades in quality quite quickly and goes stale.
Yeah. So with our fridge, how long it reckon the tea will keep, and with fridge, how long it will keep?
Well, once it's offered for commercial sale, though, you can consider it that it has, even if it's aracha still in aracha state. I don't think anybody would ever offer it for commercial retail sale without doing this final heating to reduce the moisture. And so in the case of this tea, what they're doing is they're doing the heating on these tables that you use to roll tea leaf because it is hot. And that's how they're saying it's like hand roasted.
Very interesting. It is a very specialty. So moving on to the gyokuro, you write the name on the screen when you get a chance. It is shaded not with the modern canvas. It's actually with bamboo and straw shading. So it's very traditional. And I think the benefit of it is that some of the water that is collected from the straw will drip back to the plants. Maybe you can add to it, Ian.
Okay, this particular gyokuro is actually shaded with modern shading.
No, what's written on your website? Yeah, I copied it from your website. Maybe you need to change that.
I need to check that. No, I'm pretty sure that this it says a hon gyokuro. I'm pretty sure that this tea is not shaded. I'll have to check.
Okay.
So you can shade it with modern shading, like plastic, like black shading that you might see over a lot of photographs. You can shade it also with like a canopy shading, and you can shade it with a canopy shading with straw. You can shade it, you can either shade it directly on the plants or with a canopy, and you can shade it either with like plastic material, which is easier to roll up, or you can shade it with straw. And so this is so this one is made with, is this made with canopy shading? No, this is made with vinyl, like the plastic shading. Yeah, and what I call heritage grade gyokuro is shaded with the canopy shading. And what I call modern heritage gyokuro is canopy shading with plastic material.
Okay.
And so the straw allows you to adjust the amount of sunlight more easily because you can easily remove it and put more on. I think the main difference in terms of like quality gyokuro is whether it's shaded directly or whether it's canopy shaded. And so if it's canopy shading, that allows the tea plant to grow freely, which requires you to hand pick it. If you do you could do canopy shading and then use machine harvesting as well, and that's also possible. So this one is using machine harvesting. So if you think this is great, then that's actually a matter of the skill of the farmer himself. Like Kurihara-san is one of the best farmers for gyokuro in Japan. So even his more you get higher crop yield obviously if you can use machinery to do the harvesting. And then his heritage level gyokuro is like award winning. So I'm actually lowering the temperature to like about 50 to 60 degrees.
Yes.
I don't know. Are you steeping it already?
No,
So what
I'm
I will do,
because I don't have a, proper wear for Gilcro, so I'm using a very flat gaiwan. I think the shape is very similar.
yeah, it's
Uh,
fine.
yeah,
So what I'm
and
gonna do is I'm gonna pour this so that the water just covers the leaf.
yes, I've seen Monica did that.
Right. I don't know if you can get this closer. Can I get this closer?
Yeah, that's great.
And so you can it takes about 2 minutes, but the water will absorb the leaf, and then the leaf level and the water level will be about the same, or the leaf will start popping up, like expanding, and so that it starts like filling up all of the water space, and that's when you know it's ready, basically.
Mm. So I will have to say that I've lost track of the chat because you're chatting among yourself, which is great. Keep doing that. But if you have a question, put a question mark at the beginning so I can catch that. I think Sudi asked that how many tea you tend to drink each day for like the tasting purpose. And do you drink tea on your day off?
I drink tea on my day off. I do
Yeah,
drink tea on my day off sometimes.
that's
I drink a lot of things on my day off. I mean, I'll be, a lot of tea merchants will probably try to hide the fact that they might also drink coffee. I drink coffee, so I want to tell you the difference between the way that I drink coffee and the way that I drink tea. And actually, drinking coffee helps me understand some of my customers as well, because when I drink coffee, I drink dark roasted coffee, and
yeah.
I really don't care much about the coffee as long as it tastes good.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm just not interested in coffee. Um, I have really no desire to learn about like the different beans or the different areas where the coffee comes from. As long as it tastes good, that's fine for me. Whereas tea, I find extremely fascinating.
Mm,
Um, and like to learn about the different cultivars and how it affects the quality of the tea, and how the different processing methods affect the quality of the tea, and
yeah.
what it tastes like. If you can see here, basically the water has been absorbed by the leaf, so
Yes.
that'll leave a little bit left that I'm going to pour out.
Wow, that's an interesting technique you use.
I mean, I do this primarily because um, using all of these glass containers makes it easier to see the, the
I
tea.
agree. Yes.
So I've actually used only a very, very small amount. And I
Yeah,
can
but that would be so yummy. I think it would taste like chicken soup.
So if this was a different type of tea, like this concentration would be super bitter. Um,
Oh,
this concentration right now is super umami flavored, like it's super savory.
yes.
And that's the quality of this tea. Now, this isn't the best quality, so there is a bit of astringency.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's like a wow. I
Smell
haven't had
like
this in a while. It's so good.
yeah. Let me try. Wow, so nice and thick in your
Yeah.
mouth.
And then
It's
when you get to like the really really high grades, like the
yeah,
like Kurihara-san's like number one, or the Shogyoku blend from
mm,
Shogyoku from Shogyokuen, heritage, anything that what I label heritage grade yokuro, like it's like stuff that goes for like
yeah,
$100 for 100 grams. That is like you don't get any astringency with those at all, and it's just absolutely amazing. This one's a little bit cheaper at $30 for 100 grams, $35.
That is so worth it.
I'm thinking in US dollars, so I'm not sure what the rate is for Australia.
Wow, that is actually what I think. That is very affordable. 100 grams for 30 something dollar US. That's really affordable. Like I want to say that this for me, it tastes like normally gyokuro remind me of chicken broth, but not this one. This one is quite beefy. I don't know why. Like it's got a bit of
Beef
weight.
versus chicken.
Yeah, in the liquid, it's very texture, and it has a small hint of corn. I don't know if you get the same thing.
I can see a message. Keith asks, what is a tea accessory that you would recommend other than Yunomi and Kyusu? For these teas, I recommend actually don't have any of these in stock right now, but or maybe I do. This is called a shibori dashi kyusu.
Yeah, I need to buy one.
Shibori means to squeeze, and you're supposed to squeeze, and it squeezes out the drops of liquor that come out. So this is actually very nice because you're not meant to steep gyokuro at a high temperature. It is a wide, and this allows the water to cool. And so that's on purpose. And so what I wanted to show you was that if you take boiling water, I'm going to boil this again.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I also want to share another question from Juliet. What was the amount of tea leaves used for this gyokuro?
I don't know actually. The key point is to pour water onto the leaf so that it just covers the leaf. And then when the leaf absorbs the water, you can hold it like this and it won't fall over. And then you get a small amount of leaf. You get a small amount of liquor out of it. Otherwise, I guess you could do like 5 grams. I think I have a recommendation. 5 grams with 50 milliliters is kind of a good standard. And when you do the gyokuro brewing method, you do this and you get that small amount of really, really concentrated umami. And then afterwards, you're meant to steep it at a high temperature and steep it like sencha. And when you do steep it at a higher temperature like sencha, you still get a very, very good tea out of it because you've only steeped a little bit of flavor out of this. Mostly the umami flavor, but you've only steeped it a little bit of it. So,
we have a related question from Sue. So between shibori dashi and hohin, which one do you recommend?
So a shibori dashi is a kind of hohin because it doesn't have a handle, and hohin is like a gaiwan, except that it does have like a little spout to it. So a hohin is great for, and usually a hohin differs from a shibori dashi in that it would be like a much taller version. And you can use a shibori dashi mainly for like high grade teas that you don't need to worry about retaining temperature. And the hohin would be something that you would be more concerned about retaining temperature with. But in either case, both of them are similar in that sense. That you're using it for very high grade teas.
Yes.
So this was boiling, so I'm going to pour it into my cooler. Here, I'm using this pot to cool the water a little bit. It's still kind of hot. I need another pot. I'm going to cool this down to like 80 degrees or so.
Yes.
70 or 80 degrees.
So are you saying that the second infusion should be hotter than the first?
Yeah, and I want to show you this effect. You don't have to make it too hot. You can actually to enjoy it more. It could be lower temperature, but you take this.
Yeah.
This is like 80 degrees right now. Right.
Yeah.
Pour it out.
Straight away.
Yeah, straight away.
Okay.
Let's see what I'm doing here. And you get this. You look how.
Oh wow! That color's amazing.
See it here. So it should be like green and opaque looking.
Yeah, almost rural.
And the opacity comes from the fact that it was not light steamed, but more darker steamed. So it's kind of, it's because of it's steamed. Kurihara-san says he steams this as regular steamed sencha, like the level is regular. But because the leaf is so young and tender, and because it was shaded pretty heavily, it has this type of quality, which is more like a fukamushi or a deep steamed quality to it. And this comes out when you steep it at a hotter temperature. And so the flavor should be nice and like sencha with a very strong umami notes.
See, like with more volume, it doesn't have that beefy texture anymore.
Yeah. So you steeped out a lot of the I guess the beefiness is more like the umami flavor. You steeped it out in the first steeping, and so you're left with like the more bitter flavors.
Yeah, there's more astringent. Yeah. It's still quite nice though. It still has that really long finish that coat all around your mouth. Definitely a very, very different experience from drinking a sencha. Even though you don't grab that, I think that the first infusion is the best for in Gyokuro. Now, I have a quick question about, because you mentioned fukamushi. So for you, the difference between fukamushi and alamushi, like which one would you go for?
Asamushi, right?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I wrote the wrong word on my note.
So you could say that the first one that we did today was asamushi. It was so asamushi is it's got 20 seconds steaming. Depends on the number of seconds actually varies based off of a lot of variables, like how big the leaf is, the temperature of the day. But asamushi is more like 20 seconds. A regular steaming is about like 40 to 60 seconds, and then a deep steaming would be like 60 to 90 seconds. With the deep steam, it creates this quality in that it's very opaque, and it makes the leaf a little bit sweeter. Asamushi, you're getting a very light, delicate liquor out of the leaf. The leaf's shape stays intact, and it's closer to. I guess you could say that it's closer to the original state of the leaf. But it creates different qualities, and you can only do asamushi really with high quality leaves, whereas you can do fukamushi with low quality leaves, and fukamushi helps the low quality leaf taste a little bit better.
Really?
Yeah. So fukamushi, I mean, if you do asamushi with a low quality leaf, it just doesn't taste very good at all. So fukamushi or deep steaming was developed in order to allow very harder, more mature, stiffer leaves become softer. And so it became more popular as a result of that, so that you can get lower quality leaf, lower price, and a better flavor out of it. But all of the very, very high quality leaves tend to be like asamushi or light steamed.
So we have a few more questions, Ian, if you are happy to go on with the questions, or do you want to move on to another tea first?
Up to you. The last one is unique, so we could do that.
Yeah, I think we should brew that one because would that be one of the innovative things that is happening in Japan?
This one is very unique. This one's very unique. Definitely. So Matsumoto-san kind of took his hints from Lapsan Suchon. Is that how you say it? My Japanese. I'm Chinese.
No, that is English. Chinese is 正山小种.
Okay. So he took hints from that, and he's been smoking teas in Shizuoka. So he takes his black teas, and then he takes various different types of wood, and then he smokes the teas in small quantities with different types of wood. So the sample you have right now is smoked with fig wood. Yes. He does like pine wood, cypress wood, whiskey barrels wood, sakura, yuzu, apple, peach, cacao. I don't know where he got the cacao wood from. That was always very interesting. And so it creates a he makes it into black tea first, and he also does this with hojicha, but he makes it in, and then he smokes it afterwards. So that's the main difference. Yeah.
I see.
So this is black tea.
So you do have a few different smoked tea, there. I know you also have one that is smoked by sakura wood. Can you taste the difference if a different sort of wood is used?
I cannot. I'll be very honest with you. I cannot. Okay. If you read some of the comments by some of our customers who are much more developed palate than I have, they definitely can tell the difference. But I mean, like depending on like how like sophisticated your palate is, I think that makes a difference. For me, I love it. I really love smoked things. Like I like smoked cheese, smoked olive oil, smoked. One of the things that I really want to offer in Yunomi is smoked soy sauce.
Soy sauce! Wow.
It's absolutely delicious. There's a company in Nagano Prefecture that does smoked olive oil, smoked cheese, and smoked soy sauce. And so you're supposed to mix the smoked olive oil with smoked soy sauce and put the sauce up and then put your smoked cheese in.
Oh wow!
That's so interesting. Smoked black tea. Yeah.
Wow, I would like to have that.
That's what we do.
So between smoked tea and hojicha, you go for smoked tea, right?
It's definitely different. You're with smoked teas or even smoked hojicha that he has, like it's a smokiness, like that's what you're getting out of it, and that's what you're enjoying. With hojicha, it's the hojicha flavor is in the tea itself, so it's a little bit different of a experience.
So I catch a question here. Are there any young tea farmers learning already to carry the art on, or are they not as interested?
There are a lot of young tea farmers that are carrying on the art of farming and processing and cultivation. There are a lot of young tea factory workers who are doing it, learning, but it's like when you talk about percentages, it's like 10% of the population of factory workers or tea farmers. And so like the bell curve like this, it's around 60 years old, and then this small amount of people here are in their 30s and 40s, and there's just very few number of them.
I see.
People get into the industry in their 30s and 40s, often from coming from other places and discovering that they actually like working in the production side. But the tea industry in Japan is kind of a declining industry. So there's always companies every year going out of business or closing shop. So it's not a vibrant industry in that sense.
Does
And
that mean that there's less demand for tea in Japan at the moment?
so the demand for tea in Japan is not decreasing, but
Okay.
the way that people are drinking tea in Japan are with bottled teas, like Itoen's
Yeah.
bottled teas. Itoen is not even like the number one tea. Coca-Cola has the number one tea. I think Coca-Cola has the number one bottled tea product in Japan. There are Ayataka tea as well as Kirin. Kirin has a line. And so all of the big beverages companies have bottled tea, and the bottled tea is fairly good.
You think it's
bottled tea. Do I think it's good? No. But, like I almost never drink bottled green tea. At least I almost never drink it. So I would
so
rather.
when you're out, you're in front of a vending machine. I'm putting you on the spot. There's bottled tea, there's canned coffee. Which one?
I'll get canned coffee.
Ah,
When you drink this,
yeah.
it's hard to go. It's hard. Like, I mean, there are. I know people who are like it's either bad tea or nothing at all. In my perspective, I would rather drink, canned
Bag.
coffee than bad tea. But the tea it's nothing like this.
Yeah.
It's nothing like this, but it's decent for most people. And because it's decent for most people and it's convenient, like you would never make, well, for the most part, most people, like 99.9% of people would never make their own Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola comes out of bottle.
Yeah.
Right? So the young population, the young people in Japan now consider green tea as something that you get out of a bottle now. And
Yeah.
people don't know that, like, people don't even know that you can actually brew tea yourself. It's gotten to that level even in Japan.
Yeah.
So like when you think about it's interesting from a marketing perspective, it's interesting to see how people market tea in Japan. And they're primarily marketing to people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's very that way. There is kind of like a small like revival movement or like a third wave tea movement going on in Japan. So there are young people getting involved and trying to sell tea. But for the most part, I see them struggling.
Are there a lot of bubble tea in Japan?
There's not a lot of bubble tea, but it's picking up.
Right. Because like I'm not advocating for bubble tea, but at least they use tea leaves to make the base for the tea.
True.
Yeah. So Kirsten also said that Ian, you have a YouTube channel, but do you and will you do educational sessions for an online corporate or community audience to help spread the word?
I do not, but I will if somebody organizes it. Organizing it does take time and planning, and so most of my time is spent doing other things. Shipping.
Yeah, you're very busy. You have like your confectionery line coming up and smoked soy sauce.
Yeah, I'm trying to put together like a regional matcha set, like having like matcha from maybe like 5 to 10 different regions in Japan. I'd like to do a roast, like a super strong roasted matcha. Not like a roasted green tea powder, like hojicha powder, but like a roasted matcha, like a very strong green roast. I don't know how that will turn out, so we're kind of experimenting with Osada-san. I'd like to actually, I have this huge box right here. This box right here is filled with tea from a small tea farm in Nara, they've been going around to these small villages, learning how these small villages in Wakayama and Aichi Prefecture do their folk teas. and they're making these folk teas. These folk teas are pretty interesting. Like my Instagram profile has the latest one. Like there's one called the Cuppa Cha that they do these types of smoked tea, folk teas. And so we've got a whole box there that needs to be uploaded into the website. There's all kinds of things that I like to do, and a lot of companies that are doing really great teas that I'd like to get up online. So there's a lot of that's going on. So I don't plan a lot of educational sessions that I probably should do more of.
Yeah. I think that, if you are up for it, I definitely would like to pick your brain more about this tea. Japanese tea, and do educational session. And I do notice that we are over 1 hour now.
Yes.
So we will grab a few more questions. But the first question is, what temperature you recommend for the smoked tea?
I recommend you steep this as a black tea, so like 3 to 5
so about
minutes
90.
at hot temperature, at a 90 degrees. I'm going to grab this. I don't have another pot, do I?
Juliet said that it seems to me that artisan coffee is super popular in Japan. Why isn't it the same case, that such a movement develops around tea among young people? Well, that would be a very, very, very complicated.
I can answer that question for two reasons. First reason is that Japan is a coffee country. Japan, the consumption of coffee is about 5 times that of tea in Japan.
Right.
So Japan is primarily a coffee country in terms of like how much coffee is consumed versus how much tea is consumed.
Do they grow coffee there? Do they grow coffee there?
No. There's one small place in Okinawa that grows a little bit, and I've seen them around in trade shows trying to, they're trying to get other farmers to grow coffee, but it's not picking up. I think the coffee is not very good with this climate. But the other thing that's very interesting about coffee is that you buy the beans and you roast them yourself. And after you roast it, it's the best quality time, as far as I understand, is like 3 days to like a month after it's roasted. And so the process of roasting is kind of like a craft, right? And that craft, and Japanese are really have a tendency towards like perfecting craft. And so the process of like roasting coffee lends itself towards this craftsmanship aspect of Japanese culture. And so that you have a lot of like independent coffee roasters in Japan as a result. And so like the third wave coffee movement that was started by like Blue Bottle and things like that, they get their inspiration from Japanese coffee roasters. So it's just very interesting. But tea, how do you allow tea to become more of a thing that young people can get involved in? I don't really know too much about, but I am thinking about doing something like flavored tea, which is I'm Hawaiian. So
okay.
The idea is to do like Hawaiian flavored teas for the Japanese market.
What would that be?
Like from my point of view, it'd be like something from my childhood. So like mango flavored tea.
Wow.
Lychee flavor. I had a lychee tree growing up, and papaya trees and pineapple plants. So these are all like flavors from my childhood, right? So we take those and we mix
real
it.
fruit? with real fruit, or
I don't know. I haven't. It's just an idea right now. And we could offer it to the rest of the world as well. But primarily, when I think about the Japanese market and what we should be doing in the Japanese market, like selling gyokuro in the Japanese market is not interesting. It doesn't do anything for the Japanese market or the industry. But if we sell Hawaiian teas made in Japan in the Japanese market, I think that's interesting.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about doing that. And because the tea industry in Japan is a production industry, they don't do, not a lot of companies offer flavored teas in this way. So that makes flavored tea pretty unique in Japan.
Is it? I thought that flavored tea was very, popular in Japan, given that there is a Japanese tea shop in Melbourne owned by a Japanese person, and these tea shops apparently also in Japan. Don't remember the name, those two, if you can help me out there. And they are huh?
Is it Lutetia?
Yeah, they are primarily flavored tea. So it's like peach.
So in Japan, they are known as a import company.
What? Okay, what do they import?
They import black teas from India and Sri Lanka and Kenya or whatever, and they sell import teas in Japan, and they're a specialist in import teas. And they do a lot of flavored tea. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and they're popular.
They are a Japanese company, but they're not considered like a specialist in Japanese tea in Japan.
That's why I went in and I was disappointed. But yeah, to me, I'm a pure leaf person. I would say that there's a big tea company here as well called T2. It was subsequently bought by Unilever, I think. So they are very big on flavored tea. And I remember walking inside the store thinking that, wow, this looks so cool. And the artificial flavor just really was overwhelming and I had to walk. So I think that for people who are really into flavored, yeah, I would much prefer tea with real fruit in it.
So I don't know exactly what would be like the appropriate flavored tea for the Japanese market, but the point is that there's an abundance of pure leaf teas in Japan, pure leaf Japanese tea in Japan. Us coming in and selling like pure leaf Japanese tea might be interesting, and because we have aggregated so many different producers. But I think that the people who are actively looking for good teas from specific producers can get it very easily in Japan. So in a way, we kind of are just robbing them of their business for the connoisseur market, right? So, but then the question is, how do you get young people more interested in tea?
Bubble tea.
Bubble tea. Yeah.
I think that there is a stage. I think that as you more settle in life, then you will start to go for like more, favorite that is more pure. But I think that at a young age, that like you say, favorite tea will be a good, way to go, and bubble tea will be a good way to go. Yeah.
And I think that because Japan loves Hawaii in a way that they don't. A lot of Japanese people, in the back of their mind, they don't consider Hawaii a foreign country. It's like a paradise of Japan. Which is, if you ask me how I am able to get to know so many different producers in a very closed industry. The Japanese tea industry is a very closed industry. The way that I've gotten to know a lot of people is because I'm Hawaiian. I introduce myself. I don't introduce myself as Chinese or Chinese American or American. I introduce myself as Hawaiian because when I do so, people open up very, very immediately. Like I
Wow.
went to, I
Okay.
went to Hawaii for my honeymoon 50 years ago, and like, it's just like it's such an icebreaker to be from Hawaii in Japan that it really has. It's more than anything else. You had asked me about like my studying Japanese literature in college. That has helped out a bit, especially in terms of like my Japanese level is high as a result of studying Japanese literature.
Yeah.
But more than anything else, like knowing Japanese and being able to speak it fluently, and then being from Hawaii, has been a very helpful for me in this industry.
Yes.
So
So
the
I find your background very, very interesting because your Chinese heritage. Your mother's from Taiwan. Taiwan's very close to Japan. You grew up in Hawaii, and then you study Japanese literature. Actually, I do want to know, like, as someone from Hawaii and coming into Japan, like, what is your biggest take? Like, like the things that most amaze you in Japan will be.
Well, so when I went to Brown University in the East Coast of America.
Yeah.
And when going from Hawaii to Brown University was a huge culture shock for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I expected, it being the same country, I didn't expect it to be so different. Um, Whereas when I went from Brown University to Japan, I expected it to be very different, and I didn't speak the language very well at the time. But I found it so familiar. Like the food in Japan was so familiar to me because I'd grown up with Japanese food. And my mother, being Taiwanese, was raised to, I don't know if she was raised to cook Japanese food or not, but she cooked a lot of Japanese food. Um, and so the Japanese food in Japan was familiar to me. So rather than what was amazing and different about Japan, it was very it felt very comfortable to be in Japan for me. Like the food was like basically surrounded around the food.
Yeah. So your culture
I
shock
love
was in America.
well, in America, the thing is that you always like people say you gain 15 pounds or like 7 kilograms when you go to college because all the cafeterias are all you can eat.
Yeah.
When I went to college, when I was 18, 19 years old, I lost weight because I didn't like the food. I didn't like, like mass-produced American food. Like
I have similar experience going to Australian university. I couldn't find things in the canteen that I can buy. Anyway, now we have some quick suggestion for your favorite tea business in. Sue said you can do pineapple green tea.
We have a pineapple hojicha actually.
And Juliet said that you can do Hokkaido melon green tea. So keep that in mind. Maybe you can name the tea after them. And
I
Aaron,
love Hokkaido melon. That's amazing.
yeah, the melon. Yeah, I think that Japan has a such deep love for melon because they have the melon bun as well.
I'm sorry, what? I'm reading this comment here about matcha.
Yeah, Aaron is a matcha seller here. She said that I see younger market in TikTok and Instagram enjoying matcha favorite thing such as dessert, and increasingly people are also interested in drinking matcha.
So in Japan, people are not interested in drinking matcha.
Really?
No, not at all. You can hardly even find it at the supermarket. There's a lot of matcha flavored like desserts and things like that, but very very rarely is matcha seen as a product sold to be drunk. Matcha is a flavor that is popular, yes, but as a drink, it is part of the tea ceremony. So if you're not doing the tea ceremony, there's no reason to drink matcha. You don't do the tea ceremony because you like matcha either. You do this tea ceremony because it is an art form. And
Right.
and as a result, matcha is not really a popular drink in Japan.
I feel like that people has been boxing from, by the culture and the tradition. So it's very hard for them to go out.
Get away, yeah.
Okay.
So so matcha, from an industry perspective, like matcha has become very popular as a flavor. So you get a lot of like low grade matcha being produced, and that's one of the parts of the Japanese tea industry that is growing right now, like low grade matcha production, because of the fact that it's used so much in flavoring. And a lot of low grade matcha gets sold outside of Japan as drink. But so that's one of the highlights, I guess, in Japanese.
Yeah, you told me that you were shipping 5 tons of matcha at some point, like last month.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Unfortunate, right?
Yeah. I actually have a lot of interesting comments here that I didn't get to display one by one. So Ian, if you're interested, you're welcome to have a read after the session. But we are 20 minutes over time, so we probably should wrap this up. My last question is, what's your top tip in helping people to brew Japanese tea?
My top tip?
Yeah.
I would say that you should be very careful about like not steeping with too high of a temperature for green tea. Like start with 70 degrees. You can go higher if you want it a little bit more bitter. You can go lower if you want it a little bit sweeter. But start with 70 degrees. I say 5 grams, 70 degrees, 1 minute. And 1 minute, 5 grams, 70 degrees, and about 200 milliliters for any tea. And if you start with that, it's hard to go wrong with any green tea. And with gyokuro, there's ways to steep it differently to get a certain aspect out of it. And then if you adjust the temperatures or you adjust the parameters depending on the tea. But like that 70 degrees, 1 minute, 200 milliliters, 3 to 5 grams. It's hard to go wrong with any tea with that parameter.
That's great.
That's my top tip. And there's a lot of things to learn about, like how you drink it and like how to try to like taste the flavors and things like that. And I'm probably not the best guy to talk about like how you taste it.
I think that you are actually know more than a random Japanese person, right? So I think that you're selling yourself short in the education area. So again, I've displayed here. This is Ian's website. Jump onto it to get any of these 3 teas. I think all of them are very, very unique in its own way. And if you don't know, if you're jumping halfway and didn't know what we were drinking, these teas were also listed on our marketplace, so you can get the correct name, because Ian does sell a lot of the same type of tea. Probably if you just search for sencha, there's like 100 we show up. And I just want to say that thank you much, Ian. And especially we're going over time as well. You have shared a lot. I think that everyone has learned a lot. Thank you for being part of Melbourne Brewing. And we will continue to promote this video. And our next live session is on Thursday, 8 p.m. So stay in touch and share this video so more people can know about Ian. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.
Thank you.